Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and our usual Thursday night guests. We've got John Gibson and Malcolm MacDonald. Good evening, lads.
Good evening, Steve.
Hi, guys.
Those of you who watch the show regularly will notice that I'm looking a bit like Mickey Mouse tonight. That is because people have said my sound hasn't been great, so I've managed to get a headset. I hope you can hear us a bit clearer tonight. That's a little bit of investment on my side to give the show a little bit more of a boost. So what we didn't do last week, lads, was essentially look back on last season, because obviously we were hit with the news that Newcastle's takeover had come to a rather abrupt halt, and we were submerged in those kind of questions. So I do want to look over last season first before we get into the viewers' questions. So John, first and foremost, just want to ask you from your perspective. Then I'll come to Malcolm for each comment. First of all, your player of the season, John, please.
Well, it came down to two players, I think, inevitably. I'm going to go with Dubravka, and it may just be because he had the most work to do on the football pitch during the whole season, but I think he was quite exceptional. And if goals can win you titles, goalkeepers can save you points. There's no question about that. And yes, goalkeepers will make blips, because when there's a blip, it goes in the back of the net. I thought he was magnificent. By far the best outfield player for me was Saint-Maximin. And so those two were head and shoulders for me over a full season, way ahead of anybody else. And if you want to be entertained, and people forget that that's the name of the game, and it's always been the name of the game at St. James's Park, then the man to entertain you is Saint-Maximin. A breath of fresh air to watch. Quality kid, and we forget he's such a young man. I think it's easier to keep hold of Dubravka at this stage of his career, because when you become 30, you're no age in a goalkeeper. But please do not, at any stage of Newcastle's development or non-development, think of cashing in on Saint-Maximin, because that would be cut your throat time, and we've had a few of those recently. So I'm just edging with the goalkeeper, but the man that made watching Newcastle worthwhile during the season was Saint-Maximin.
Yeah. I went for Dubravka and Saint-Maximin myself as well. Malcolm, what about you? I know we weren't spoiled for choice, but who was your player of the season?
Well, I fully understand why John has gone for Dubravka. I understand that he made more saves in the Premiership than any other goalkeeper this last season. So well done to him on that. And I think he has been absolutely magnificent. But for a new signing to come in as Saint-Maximin did, and to take control of so much that was going in the opposition's half. I loved watching him play. I loved watching him make the runs, and finally, once he got the goal, you could see that he went on to another stage, and that's going to keep happening. I think it's imperative that Newcastle do everything they can to hold him. He signed on a 4-year contract, didn't he? And so I hope that if there is a sale of the club still in the offing, that prior to that they won't try and cash in on Saint-Maximin. So I'm going to go with him. I found him truly exciting. Some extraordinary skills, extraordinary ball skills, great balance, got pace, and you can see the dizzy minds that he creates in defenders, and I love watching the guy. So I'm going to go with him. Nobody has excited me for a number of years like this man has.
No, I would totally agree. He's been fantastic. Guys, when you're watching, please give it a like. Just hit the thumb button and give it a share. And if you're new to the channel, welcome, and please subscribe. John, next topic from last season. What was your favourite game of last season?
Good question, and I had a little think about that for quite a while because you can lob up games like Manchester United 1-0 in October, 3-0 beating of Sheffield United up here, having won down there, which was convincing and set us off on a little run that made staying up possible. But for me, on the sheer ability and knocking the ball around, I'm going to take Bournemouth 4-1 down there on July the 1st. An unusual day to have the greatest match of the season, isn't it? But I know the quality of the opposition wasn't that great. But for the ability to knock the ball A, B, C, D quick, I mean, at times, if you sort of got carried away for at least 30 seconds, you could have thought it was Barcelona. And San Maximum was at his best, wasn't he? He made 3 assists in that game. And just because we spent so long a season watching Dross and watching us have no possession whatsoever in the stats, we actually bossed possession, bossed passing it around, and looked an actual football team in that game. So I've got to go for Bournemouth, despite the fact that the opposition was very, very poor and ended up relegated, of course.
Same question to you, Mal. What was your favourite game from last season?
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that Bournemouth game, but the one that I enjoyed more was the one that you earlier mentioned, John, which was Sheffield United away. And at the time, Sheffield United were in 6th place. They were getting cracking results. They were making life difficult for every side that they played against. And Newcastle literally tore them apart that day. So I just sat there enthralled at the way that Newcastle United went about the whole game, taking Sheffield United on and beating them all over the pitch, and then of course getting the final result of 3-0. And I noticed that you've picked an away game. I'm picking an away game, and is that putting a major question mark over Newcastle United, that St James Park isn't so much a fortress these days? But I was deeply impressed with the way that the team went about that victory at Bramall Lane. So that's my choice.
Good stuff. Next question, John, from our season review. Best goal of the season?
Yeah, well, there was a couple that came to mind for me. I mean, if you remember, for drama, there was Hayden's goal against Chelsea, for example, in the 94th minute to win the game after we'd hardly seen anything of the ball. That was for drama. But 2 goals that really stood out for me over the full season was Matty Longstaff against Manchester United. We beat them 1-0, and we all know the sort of run Manchester United went on later in the season, a terrific long unbeaten run. It was Matty's debut. He's a Geordie kid. Can you think of anything better or more romantic, and Geordies love romantic football stories, than Matty on his debut scoring the winner, a young boy. Great pullback from Jethro Williams. Remember him and the good work he did for us early in the season. And he smashed it past De Gea, who has got the reputation of being one of the best goalkeepers in the world until Matty done him. And then he's gone rapidly downhill ever since and looked distinctly average as a goalkeeper. He must still be twitching over that one, I guess. But I loved that one. So that is right up there. And the only one that really struck me that made me think, which of the 2 there were one, was Maximum's extra time winner at Oxford in the Cup, if you remember. We were almost blowing the match, having been totally in command of the game. And he ran from the halfway line past 2 defenders and blasted a shot from the edge of the box into the far corner. It was a magnificent goal. It was done at pace, with balance, everything Malcolm was talking about that he likes about San Maximum. And I guess if I had to be swayed, and if I went for Matty instead of that St. Maximin goal, it would only be on the quality of the opposition, Manchester United, as opposed to Oxford. It might be slightly easier to score against Oxford than it is against Manchester United, but both those goals stood out for me.
Not if you're Joe Linton, it has to be said, John, but that's a different story.
You should say that. I did consider Joe Linton, and then I thought, well, perhaps not. No, he's perhaps been shaded out.
Yeah, we can't go through one of these shows without mentioning him. It's usually me who does. Malcolm, your goal of the season, please.
Well, I was delighted for Matty Longstaff and that goal that he scored that you've just mentioned, John, and also for St. Maximin, who's thoroughly excited since he's arrived. But there was a cracking strike by Sean Longstaff, if you remember. It was his first goal for the club, and I'm trying to remember who the opposition was.
Let me have a look.
And he cracked it from outside the box. I'm sure somebody will text in with the answer to who the opposition was.
Was his first goal not last season?
Sorry, John?
Was his first goal, Steve, first goal not the previous season?
I think it was, but I'm just going through the fixtures from last season now, and I should be able to find out who he scored against. But he scored in the FA Cup. He scored in the FA Cup against Oxford, which I do believe was might have been a long range strike, that one. And then he scored against. He scored against Bournemouth, of course, in the 4-1 win that St. Maximin scored in as well. So those were his two goals.
Right, I think it must be the Oxford
game.
Like then that he had, yes, yeah, and he just caught it absolutely sweet, and so and I loved his reaction afterwards. Of course, you know that he really was that chuffed. So so the two Longstaff brothers, who I hope are taken a little more seriously than they have been this season by the club.
Yeah, good stuff. Final question before we get into the questions from the supporters. There's plenty of stuff coming on, and if anybody wants to send a question in, just use the comments section on YouTube, and we get them into the studio. And don't forget to give it a like and give it a share and a subscription if you're new. Was the season a success, John, or was the season a failure?
Simple answer to that. It was a success if your standard is that Newcastle United were not relegated. I find it infuriating that we've been battered for 13 years to where we call that a success because Newcastle United haven't gone down. But in many other ways, it fell well short of what we should be doing. I remember, Steve, you asking me a question earlier towards the end of the season, whether we should be grateful to Steve Bruce and actually offer him an apology. That's when he had 42 points from 32 games, which was essentially made us safe. And I said we should be grateful, but no apology. And if you look at Newcastle's record, the only time you can look at any club's record is when the season is completed. In Newcastle's season, they finished 13th, the same as the previous year. And Steve Bruce, bless him, went on quite a bit when it looked as if he was going to have a better record than Rafa's last season. Went on quite a bit saying, oh, it will be good to have done better. Better than him. Bottom line, Newcastle finished in the same position, 13th, but they had a worse points total, 44 against 45 the previous season, scored less goals, 38 against 42, conceded more goals, 58 against 48, goal difference last season of -20 and -6 the previous year. We scored 38 goals in 38 games, which is one of the worst totals we've had for seasons, and we top scored with a sitting midfielder scoring 6. No striker in the league. No striker scored more than a midfield player who only got 6. So if that's a successful season, I'll stand tapping. It's not a failure because we didn't go down. But to call it a success, Steve, is a vivid stretch of the imagination. I think it would take Hans Christian Andersen to call that a success.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have assessed it any better myself, John. Fantastic. And as always, on the ball with the stats. Malcolm, same question to you. Last look back at the season. Success or failure, Mal?
Okay, I'm going to look at it slightly different to how John has. And that is that as a player, I have 4 clubs. My first club was Fulham, and they've just achieved promotion to the Premier League. My second club was Luton, and they, when lockdown came into being, Luton were marooned at the bottom of the Championship table. But once we restarted playing, they did magnificently in those last few games, and they escaped relegation, much against the odds. My fourth club was Arsenal, and they won the FA Cup just recently. And then there was Newcastle. They did what?
So for
relegation, or did they go win anything? You know, it was such a run-of-the-mill season for me. You know, and as you were going through those stats, John, I just thought, oh my, you know, we saw St. Maximin come into the club, and he sort of sparked it up. He sparked it off, but it really didn't carry around all 10 other positions, not with everybody anyway. And I would, you know, I remember back in the 90s seeing some really exciting stuff. Back in the noughties, seeing some really exciting stuff. As we got into the latter teens and the 20s and the early 20s of this century, Newcastle United, they're certainly not pulling up any trees, that's for sure. It's almost as if average is the norm these days at St. James Park. I would dearly love to see people setting targets for themselves, for each other. You know, that I would like to see a forward say, hey, I'm going to score 25 goals at least this season, and set out, you know, and if he doesn't quite get there, all right, but he's had a good go. But you know, when you think that at Christmas, the 2 leading goal scorers were centre halves.
Yeah,
if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
you know,
tragic.
And so what the hell's going on in the dressing room? I wonder. You know, because as a forward, I expect defenders to defend, and defenders in defending should expect that once they get it forward, that the forwards go and really create some danger at the other end. But I don't really see that going on. You know, that centre halves were doing the goal scoring in the first half of the season. Then midfield players came on and started taking over the goal scoring role. And then just at the death of the season, Dwight Gale popped up with 2 or 3 goals. And I have to say, I don't know why on earth they don't stick with him, get the right partner in to play alongside of him. And whether that's Andy Carroll or not, whether he's fit enough to do that over a season, I somehow doubt it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but he's okay for coming on every now and again. but I would like them to persevere with Gale. If you said the best result, John, was Bournemouth. The whole game and result was set up by Dwight Gale in the first few minutes. Do you remember how he took the opening goal? And
yeah,
you know, and that was, you know, and his last chance. It had been in the game before, and it was he missed a sitter. He missed a real sitter. But that's the art of goal scoring. You miss one, you score one. You miss one, you score one. The miss never puts you off in taking a chance and taking it well. And that's what I like about Dwight Gale. And I would like to see him play all through the season, because I think that he will be the man who can recreate the form that he had in the Championship when Newcastle had been relegated, and he looked tremendous there, and I think that perhaps he's got the confidence in himself now to take on the Premiership, and I would take him to top, or at least to reach 25 goals in a season. But they should get the right man alongside of him.
Well, in the season, yeah, they've got to buy somebody in, Malcolm, to go with him, because we can't do that from in-house. I don't think Joe Linton, Mutu, or Andy Carroll is going to score enough goals alongside him. We've got to bring a centre forward in and let Gale play off him if necessary. But they've got to get a new number 9, an orthodox number 9 who can hit the back of the net.
Yes.
Because, as I say, there wasn't a forward that got 6 goals.
No, that's right, John. And that's embarrassing for every forward that's in the club. You know, and for heaven's sake, if I was in the reserves or in the under 23s, I've been and scoring goals, I've been knocking on the manager's door every week, saying, they can't score in the first team. Get me in there. I'm scoring at this level. See what I can do in the first team. You know, and what you get when you're out on the pitch, when you're in the dressing room, when you're out on the training pitch through the week, that when you've got somebody who regularly sticks it in the net, the confidence is all over the side. You know, players are better players when they know that there is every likelihood that there's a goal just around the corner up front. And so defenders defend that little bit better, knowing that there's a goal for them coming any moment. Midfield players, they become a bit more creative because they got somebody who's going to get on the end of crosses and passes and what have you. And what we've been seeing this last season is a complete lack of imaginative runs, a lack of people getting wide and then not crossing it, and a lack of getting the crosses in is what I'm meaning, because they're not seeing people in the box. For one, the number of times that I looked and as somebody was coming down the wing, approaching the corner flag, I'd look in the box and there wasn't anybody there. You know, what's the point of crossing if there's nobody to attack the cross? You know, so it's a complete breakdown between everybody. And so what I would like to see is that partner for Dwight Gale, and I think that if they can start smacking in goals, then everybody else becomes better because they want to supply into the area, and it becomes a much more dangerous side.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for that, lads. That completes last season. We've looked back on it, and let's hope next season's a bit better entertainment value for Newcastle fans. Got to get into the questions. Plenty of those. Keep them coming in. James Brown says, "Hello, guys. Question for Supermac. As we all know, Fulham got promoted back to the Premier League the other night. But what is your favourite memory of Fulham, with it being your boyhood club, Malcolm?"
I've got a million memories. I really have. But there was one. There was one time I was 6. 1956. This was January. It was the third round of the FA Cup, and Newcastle had played at home against Fulham, and Fulham had managed to get a 1-1 draw at St James Park, and there was the replay then on Wednesday, and of course there were no floodlights in those days, and so the midweek kickoff time in the winter, in the middle of winter, was 2 o'clock, and so on the Monday we were sitting. I was in assembly at primary school, which was just up the road from Fulham Football Club, and the headmistress, she sort of had a few things to say, and then she went on, and we have to congratulate our local club, Fulham, for getting a very creditable draw at St James Park. That's in Newcastle, and she told us to get our maps out to find where Newcastle was. And then she said, now, if anybody wants to go and watch this match, seriously wants to watch the match, then you come into school on Wednesday and you do your lessons in the morning, you have lunch here, and then you can leave and go to the ground to watch the match. Wow, thank you very much. Could you imagine that happening these days? My word. And so I went to watch it. I saw one of the greatest games I've ever seen in my life. And if you remember, just a few years back, there was in memoriam of Joe Harvey. There was a plaque put up on the corner of the ground, and I went along to it, and there was one remaining player from that game still alive, and it was the centre forward who played for Newcastle, Vic Keeble. You must have known Vic Keeble, John, I'm sure.
Yeah,
very well. Absolutely.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, so he and I, we were stood together as this plaque was, the curtains were opened on the plaque, and we got talking, and I said, by the way, I said, the first time I ever saw you score was, I said, and you broke my heart. And he said, oh, when was that? And so I related the game and what had happened to him, the replay at Craven Cottage, and Newcastle went ahead. They went ahead 4-0 in the first half, and Fulham they looked really well beaten, trudging off for half time, but they came out and they were somewhat revitalised, and they got 1 goal back, they got 2 back, they got 3 back, and then they got a 4th back, and it was tied at 4 each. And Fulham had a corner, and it was cleared. I think the keeper actually punched it, and he punched it out to Jackie Milburn, who was on the right-hand side, and he just went like a rocket up the right wing. He just flew up there, and almost at the dead ball line, he just struck a cross shot across his body, and it was just flying like an exocet towards the near post. And Vic Keeble, he just dived full length, woof, and he got his forehead to the ball and nodded it in. And it was in the last couple of minutes of the game, and I sobbed. It broke my heart.
I was going to say,
and so
Malcolm,
I had that opportunity.
I'm absolutely delighted, mate. I'm absolutely delighted that your great Fulham memories of a Newcastle victory there. I find that very satisfying. I also find it staggering we scored 5 goals in a match.
I know. Yeah. I've got a feeling that Jackie scored 2, certainly in that game. But it was that last goal. And Vic Keeble was a Londoner, of course.
Yes, he was. And if you remember, Malcolm, I mean, Vic Keeble was as great in the air as Wyn Davies was in the Fez Cup side. He was a terrific header of the ball.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, that's all he was. He couldn't, on the deck, bless him, his feet weren't the best at all. And it was always said that if we got a penalty and Jackie was off the field so he couldn't take it, and Vic Keeble had to take it, he would throw the ball in the air on the spot and head it home rather than try to kick it into the net, because his strength was in the air. And he was the last, Malcolm. He was the last, wasn't he, of the 1955 FA Cup winning side.
He was the last.
He was the last one alive,
and I think he died. He passed away about 3 years ago now. Sad because he was a lovely fella to stand and have a chat with. He really was.
Well, I got a great photograph at one of those Fairs Cup nights. I got a photograph with Vic Keeble, Albert Bennett, Malcolm MacDonald, and Ron McGarry. That's a pride of place in my photo album. That's not a bad one to have.
I was going to say, I think I'd find a place for Malcolm's photo.
How many generations have you got there? Well, you've got 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah,
certainly. Yeah,
fantastic, great memories. Right, we're going to have to crack on, guys, because we're halfway through the show and we haven't talked about the takeover, which of course is on everyone's lips.
What takeover? What takeover?
So anyway, I want to get. I do also want to mention that the Premier League had their AGM, so it does prove that they can organise something. They basically had their AGM today. The outcome of that AGM was quite significant for the new season. They voted on whether the 5 substitutes should remain in the game. Of course, the Premier League member clubs voted against that, so we will be back down to 7 on the bench and 3 substitutes. That's the first bit of news to come back from that. Good news on VAR as well. Basically, there is agreement's been reached on VAR usage to reflect the current FIFA guidelines, which will mean that more decisions will be made by the match referee viewing a pitch side monitor rather than the remote VAR official taking precedence.
Thank heavens for that. At long last, they see a bit of sense.
So hopefully there'll be a third thing, and that'll be to get the takeover sorted out, because they've got no reason to stop it. Diary dates have come out as well for those of you who are interested in those kind of things. The Newcastle United Academy squad returns to training, pre-season training, on the 10th of August. Then on the 15th of August, that is now the amended go-live date for the test sporting events with limited crowds that had originally been set for the 1st of August. So that's been put back a couple of weeks. Newcastle's third kit, of course, comes out the same date on the 15th of August. Then Newcastle's senior squad return to pre-season training on the 17th of August. And then the Premier League fixture list will be released, subject to final confirmation, on the 24th of August. So those are all the dates in your diary. And as I say, quite unusual. Football still ongoing. European fixtures yet to be fulfilled. And, we're already talking about the new season kicking off, which is, of course, all down to this pandemic. So back onto your questions, guys. Geordie says, see that Newcastle are rumoured to want to sell Woodman and also release Matty Longstaff. Do you think it's about time that there was a limit to the amount of foreign talent that can play for a club? John, give that to you first.
That's a very, very good point. A very, very good point. It bothers me that Newcastle get rid of kids that have come through the academy all too quickly. I mean, if we're harsh, we've known Matty Longstaff's going for a while, because that was made abundantly clear by the fact that all of a sudden, having done the great things he did, like the winner against Manchester United that I was talking about, he wasn't even making the bench, or certainly not coming off the bench for the vast majority of the run into the season. And that's because the club knew he was already on his way. And that is a huge sadness. And I saw the Woodman thing. He's had a great season at Swansea. He won all the age group things it was possible to win with England. And you just wonder whether they were a little bit hasty in getting him out, as we did, of course, with Fraser Foster, who went on to play for England, having gone up with Celtic and Southampton. So, are we being a bit quick, a bit trigger happy here in doing this? Because the amazing thing is, when you look at talking about foreign players, and the best of the foreign players have unquestionably enhanced the Premier League. When you go back to Thierry Henry and Bergkamp doing what he did to Dabidas, it wasn't certain whether he was bored or punctured, if you remember, on that goal at St James's Park. But there is a situation where less and less of our homegrown lads are getting the opportunity to come through, and some of the foreign players that have come in, and we've had some, have been well beneath the standard we would like. So I think that there is a situation where we've got to be wary that we're not just opening the door to any Tom, Dick and Harry coming in. And I'm not talking about the legal side of it now. When we were in Europe, in the European community, you couldn't shut the door. Yeah, there had to be exchanges. But it is a worrying trend. And the worrying trend with Newcastle United is that homegrown stars are rather shipped out rather quickly.
Yeah, Malcolm, got a question for you here. James Brown says, are there any realistic strikers Newcastle could potentially sign that you think would be good enough for Newcastle? We've been linked to Callum Wilson and Josh King, but any more that you can think of?
There's going to be available, but of course, it's also wide now, with players coming from all over the world, and it's impossible for us guys to be able to follow everybody that's being scouted, and good heavens above, the scouting network that a Premiership club needs. Instead of it being a national thing, it's now worldwide. Yeah, there will be players about. But first and foremost, they've got to get somebody playing next to Dwight Gale. We mentioned it earlier in the programme, but that is an imperative. And really, to be quite honest, if they could move Joe Linton on, then they should do that, because I can't see the fella surviving this first season that he's had. Everything is just so stacked up against him that I can't see how he's ever going to recover whilst wearing a black and white shirt. And I think that in all honesty, the guy needs he needs a new start elsewhere.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of calls about a lot of text about Joe Linton tonight as well. Go on, John. I'll let you have your say.
Yeah, my one worry is, Steve, that we end up, because bearing in mind that the takeover hasn't happened. It's either collapsed or it's ongoing at a low-key level. If we are stuck with Mike Ashley as we are at the moment, my biggest nightmare is that 3 of the 4 places up top will go to Joe Linton, Andy Carroll, and Dwight Gale. And of course, Joe Linton and Andy Carroll have contracts for the new season. That would only leave 1 position left for a striker, and that's if you've managed to get Muto out, or he's got that position, and that we end up with somebody on loan or a free transfer deal like the one we got in on Andy Carroll. We have got to get in a mobile centre forward that buries into the box and puts himself about. We for far too often, our standards have been small. And yes, we spent 40 million on trying to solve that problem a year ago, but got it so horrendously wrong, it's untrue. But we're not going to solve it by taking free transfer men with a horrendous history of injuries like Andy Carroll and expecting it to work, or taking players past their sell-by date, as we did way back with John Bonds and Ian Rush. What signings they would have been in the pump. But by the time we got them, they were old age pensioners. And then we got Michael Owen, who had been to Real Madrid and had a poor injury, and his major asset had gone, which was his pace, and therefore he was a pale shadow of himself. We seem to think that if you've been a great striker, if you've had a big reputation, whether you're Bonds or you're Rush or you're Owen or you're Andy Carroll, that we're buying the original. When we're not buying the original, we're buying today's lukewarm version of the original. And my fear is that because of lack of cash, we go down that patch up idea this summer and get in a centre forward more on hope than on ability.
Yeah, Jason Carter says there are calls for a complete restructure of how the Premier League is run. What needs to change from the ground up for starters? I mean, yeah, a lot of criticism of the Premier League. Of course, the fans are protesting against the Premier League as we speak. The petition, which has been set up for an independent investigation into the English Premier League takeover process, has now hit 86,479 and counting. And of course, the NUFC, Newcastle United Supporters Trust, also set up an action network campaign for you to basically send a letter to your local MP. The target for letters yesterday morning when they launched this was 6,400. That was 9 o'clock yesterday morning. We're currently at 5,911 letters sent, so only another just under 500 letters to go. But all MPs, more or less every single MP, is now being contacted about Newcastle's takeover issue. So fans momentum building quite well. Premier League's the one that's been targeted, Malcolm. What do you think the Premier League needs to change?
Well, they've made us a step forward with giving the referee total control over VAR. That's been absolutely vital. I think that the huge hiatuses that we've suffered in the game while we've waited for somebody in a distant room far from the stadium is looking at replay over replay over replay over replay. It's absolutely crazy. With a full ground of spectators, they want to see what is happening. They want to know what is happening, and that's why it's important that if they can see the referee walking across the pitch, looking at a screen, then faith is restored in the referee. And I think that VAR it can be a great asset for the referee as long as he's got control of it. But they took the control away, and so now they've given it back to him. Good, that's a start. Well, what else can the? I still have a very big question mark with regards to the Premier League over how is it that they had all the documentation for the takeover of Newcastle for 17 and a half weeks? So yeah, I think that's the time that they had it for. That is over a third of a year, and it is not good business practice to just sit on it, say nothing, and well, of course, people are going to walk away. Serious business people are going to walk away. And
I tell you what, though, Malcolm, and this is interesting, and I think, John, you'll find this interesting as well. You know John Waff very well from the Magpie Group days. He says that they really, Premier League, don't have a leg to stand on with this, because if Mike Ashley agrees to sell to PIF and the partners, he can sell those shares to PIF, to PCP, and to the Rubens, and there's not really a great deal that the Premier League can do about it. And the transfer of ownership could be completed. They could then come back and say the deal's done, and they couldn't actually prevent Newcastle United operating as a football club, because it would be prevention of a business. It's actually a very fine line that the Premier League are treading here. It's prevention of trade, I think it's known as. And that situation, if the PIF can be brave enough to make it, could actually force the issue. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting few weeks. We've got so many people asking questions, so I don't want to dwell too much on the takeover. Peter Merrifield, will come to your question in a minute about Amnesty calling for an overhaul of the owners and directors test. We'll come to that in a minute. I did see somebody called Anonymous One asking a question about what was our thoughts on the best signing that Newcastle have made over the last 20 odd years, and who is the best sale. Now, my opinion on that is quite simple. If we're going to go in my lifetime as a Newcastle fan, best signing, pound for pound, Alan Shearer. Best sale, Andy Carroll. And that's it for me.
Yeah, you couldn't take the words out of my mouth, Steve. It's exactly that. I mean, to get Shearer, yes, to pay the world record 15 million, but by Jove, was it worth it? He ended up by being the top goal scorer in the club's history. He almost handedly took us to 2 Wembley Cup finals. He scored the winners in both the semi-finals. We had wonderful days in Europe. He led the line of the entertainers that finished second top in the Premier League, without a shadow of doubt, the best signing. And the best sale, because of the money, 36 million. We thought at the time for Andy Carroll that was an incredible amount of money, and it's the first time that Ashley has cashed in, the only time, Ashley's cashed in on a Newcastle player, and Newcastle fans have said privately, well, we can understand why. And of course, with hindsight, when you take Andy's physical record, since his record of injuries and his goals returns, he's never gone into double figures in the league since leaving Newcastle. That was a terrific sell. So I think those two, without a shadow of doubt. We can talk about worse buys, but we'd have to stay on air for about another 3 hours if we're going to do that.
Yeah, Malcolm, you were nodding as well, Malcolm. Did you agree with those two?
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think that they really are the standout answers to the question.
Christopher says, good money for Sissoko and Wijnaldum. You're not wrong. It was daylight robbery. That was great business by Rafa Benitez. It's something he doesn't get enough praise for. Him and his representatives managed to pull out some good money for both of those. Wijnaldum, to be fair, has gone on to do very well. Champions League winner, of course, and now a Premier League winner as well. But it was good money. And Sissoko, he's done okay at Spurs, but it was good, good bit of business. And Mike Ashley should have been pleased with that. Toonami TV's asking Malcolm, what are your thoughts for Fulham next season? Do you think they can stay up with ex-Newcastle player Scott Parker in charge? The
players love Scott Parker. They get on really well with him, and he with them. And I think he's getting the very best out of them. And so good luck to him. I really hope that he continues the good work that he's started. You know, it's a great thing, isn't it? First season in management to get promoted to the Premiership. Absolutely fantastic. And I hope that Fulham do not make the dreadful error this time around that they did the last time they got promoted. They went and spent over £100 million on players who just weren't up to it. And I think Scott Parker is fighting shy of anything like that ever happening again under his watch, and that he's actually said that he is looking to keep pretty much the same side going into the start of next season. And good luck with him on that one. It's great for a young manager, and he is a young manager in the game right now. And it'll be lovely to see him at least keep Fulham up in the Premiership and not get relegated straight away.
Yeah, Martin Bailey says Newcastle is a big club. Why isn't the Premier League silent? Go on, John.
Sorry, I was going to say, I was just being flipped there. If you want your club not to spend a lot of money, you know, when they're promoted, then let Mike Ashley take them over. They won't spend a lot of money then.
Very true, John. Yeah. But just on what John said, it's also highlighting the ridiculous situation that Newcastle find themselves in. Is there going to be a takeover? Isn't there going to be a takeover? Or is Mike, you know, put yourself in Mike Ashley's shoes.
No thanks.
Why? No, why would he spend a penny on any transfers if he's about to sell it? You know, and I think that I really do think that the Premier League has got this all so wrong, that you have to give equal opportunity to all clubs. And I think that in causing the situation that has arisen for Newcastle and left them in this vacuous situation as they are right now, I think it's absolutely appalling that Newcastle should be placed in this situation, because the Premier League just couldn't be bothered to get around and do something positive.
Yeah, fair enough. Loads of comments coming in.
I honestly...
Yeah, loads of comments coming in from people who only got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Just about the takeover, really. A lot of people asking what we think Ashley will spend. Well, Malcolm's just said there he doesn't think they'll spend a great deal.
There's no incentive for him to do so.
Of course not. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people asking about Sky and why they're not covering the petition, etc. Well, they are going to do it tomorrow. I am going to do an interview with a reporter tomorrow down on the quayside with a few other supporters to talk about the petition, to talk about the letters to MPs, talk about the current atmosphere in Newcastle. So Sky will be doing that tomorrow. So they are keeping an eye on it. They are watching developments. A lot of people are annoyed about the owners and directors test. Dan Milne, I think, sums it up perfectly. What's the point of an owners and directors test if the Premier League are just going to block deals? It does seem very much as if they're against us. A lot of people also asking about Rondon, John. Rafa Benitez is God there saying I'd have Rondon over our strikers. Would you like to see Rondon, make a play for Rondon? I mean, he's certainly Premier League class, and I would imagine that his finances have probably gone. The cost of him is probably around about the same or gone down, maybe.
I mean, there's absolutely no question that he's better than anything we've got, but almost anybody is. And the trouble with the Rondon situation, yes, I would take him on what we've got, but I know that privately behind the scenes, Mike Ashley and his cohorts, the people that were advising to him and that had his ear, were putting in a lot of bite about how Rondon wasn't the right man for Newcastle, age-wise, goals-wise. They wanted Rondon out the club as much as they wanted Joe Linton in the club. So that with Mike Ashley still in charge of Newcastle United and the same people round him as were round him a year ago, I think the chances of Rondon coming back here are absolutely nil. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't welcome it. It just means I don't expect it to happen at all, because I know what was going on behind the scenes to try to get Rondon out and then to try to get Joe Linton in.
Yeah, and also, John, that Rondon was no spring chicken when he left, and that was a year ago. So age is pretty much against him as far as the Premier League is concerned. But
how old's Joe Linton?
I think he's.
How old's Joe Linton?
23.
He's 23.
Yeah. Oh, he's a young lad, according to Steve Bruce. Yeah. That makes all the difference.
No. Oh, yeah, it does. Can you imagine him in 10 years' time still scoring 2 goals a season? But hopefully not for us.
Yeah, a lot of people saying that we won't buy any strikers anywhere near 30, which could be true. Ashley and Charnley would never sign Rondon. Aloid from Saudi Arabia says, better for sure. It seems all the signs are temporarily to save the season and stay up in the Premier League. Barry Hogan says, Malcolm's looking younger and younger. He could still do a job. Paul Oxley says, we might get Troy Deeney on loan. Jason Carter says, we didn't sign Remy permanently because Ashley thought he was too old, which is crazy. Yeah. Loic Remy's a free agent, I think, this summer. I would certainly look.
Also, Steve, the Watford lad, he's no spring chicken.
No, he's not.
Troy Deeney, what is he? About 31, 32?
Got to be round about that, mate. 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's look, I think we're going to be in for another summer of discontent, is my honest opinion. I still think there's life in the takeover. What kind of life, I'm not 100% sure, but I think as well, we're coming up to the last couple of minutes of the show. We'll finish on the takeover. I genuinely feel I just genuinely feel it's probably eased the pressure, what PCP and PIF and the Rubens have done here, because we had a ticking clock, lads. It was becoming monotonous being on the show, talking about the takeover. I know we're still talking about it, but now we're not going, well, it's been 18 weeks, it's been 19 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Why is there no answer? The pressure cooker was boiling. At least we can say now that at the minute it's not going ahead, and we know that we've got Steve Bruce and we know what we've got to deal with. But I don't know. I felt a bit of relief. I don't know whether you did, Malcolm.
To a degree, but it's still not answered anything, has it? The situation that they find themselves in now, it hasn't. And I will reiterate what I said earlier, that the Premier League have got to learn from this. They cannot leave a football club hanging as they have left Newcastle for all of this time, and it's still hanging. There is no answer, no solution, and the Premier League have got to take responsibility for that. It was just left with nothing.
Oh, Malcolm, he's gone into a suspended animation there. I don't know what's happened. John, same question to you, just about Newcastle United, and the takeover. Do you personally feel that it's taken a little bit of pressure off anyway?
I think it has. I mean, I'll cling to any bit of flotsam that is passing us, because I'm so desperate for Newcastle United to be taken over and for the Ashley years to be confined to history. Because I look back over my lifetime as a Newcastle supporter, it's 51 years since I watched Newcastle win the European Fairs Cup. It's 65 years since I watched Newcastle win a domestic trophy. Yet, believe it or not, Steve, I'm one of the lucky ones, because I've actually seen Newcastle win something. Those 2 trophies I'm talking about, 51 and 65 years ago, for a club of our size. And That means there's a generation of Newcastle fans and their sons and daughters who have given their life to support Newcastle United without one piece of encouragement or one piece of silverware. And that has got to stop, and it will only stop when a takeover happens. So please, God, whether it's the man over in America, whether it's the guy that's selling Roma, or whether we can get Amanda's crew back on board, let us have something, because we're desperately needed.
Great stuff, John. Great crack as always, says Steve Bennett. And I've got to agree, mate. I just enjoy sitting listening to you guys and just facilitating the program. So great to have you on, John. Look forward to having you back next week. Have a good week, mate.
God bless you. Same to you, mate. To Newcastle fans, keep the faith. Great
stuff. Cheers, John. Great to have John Gibson on. Friday tomorrow, I will be appearing as part of the NUFC live chat on YouTube tomorrow, so that's well worth watching. Newcastle United Supporters Trust holding that on Wura's page on YouTube. That'll be 5:30 until 7:30. And then after that, I'll be live with the lads, 7:30 until 9:30. The three amigos, me, Steve Hasty, and Neil Mitchell. And we've got a couple of guests as well who will be on, throughout the show, as always. I think we've got Spenny Muammag. He will be joining us. We've also got a couple of others. The Highland Geordie, I think, is joining us as well. But yeah, as always, look forward to having you on. Your comments are always fantastic. Great to have you on. Please give it a like. Always hit the thumb button. Please give it a share just so people can watch it. And if you're a first-time visitor, please subscribe. Great stuff. Thanks to everybody. Take care. Have a great evening.